case I want to make is for parents to just become aware, even before you have children, that when your children are born, it's a genital identity that you're celebrating, not a gender identity.
Content warnings for this episode include youth suicide, mental health struggles, parental rejection, and self-harm.
Genderful would like to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples and unceded lands that the producers, hosts, and guests live and have dwelt upon. Today we honor the
Salish,
Mohawk, Algonquin, and Anishinabewaki.
Muscogee.
We honor the elders, the human, plant, and animal ancestors of these lands, and celebrate the living descendants of these peoples. May all beings tend to these lands for the goodness of the next 7 generations and beyond.
Howdy, folks. Welcome to Genderful, a talk show interviewing gender diverse people about their special interests. Hi, I'm GenderMeowster, and my pronouns are they, them.
Hi, I'm Miranda, and my pronouns are she, her.
The focus of our show is to interview trans, non-binary, agender, two-spirit, and gender diverse people regarding their special interests, passion projects, and resources for the gender diverse community.
We want our audience to know that we hold multiple diverse identities and bring these lenses to the show with our passion for telling our stories.
I identify as non-binary, transmasculine, polyamorous, ADHD, autistic, and disabled with chronic pain and mobility issues. I also am white and reside in the United States.
I identify as trans feminine, neurodivergent, queer, and a person of color residing in Canada. We invite you to remember that we are whole people with robust lives, friendships, challenges, and successes. We love and are loved, and we are delighted to share these stories with you.
As always, we kindly remind our listeners that no person is a monolith of their identities. Your identities can change over time and are valid every step of the way. And if you think you're gender diverse, you are gender diverse. There's no social or medical prerequisite to be included in the community. Welcome to GenderfulPodcast, a show interviewing gender diverse people about their special interests. This week, our guest, Dr. Lulu, she, her, is chatting with us about how to be an affirming parent to a gender diverse child. Dr. Lulu is a proud cis mom to a trans woman, and she hosts a podcast called Moms for Trans Kids with several other great moms where they talk about different aspects of allyship and how best to be an affirming parent. Welcome to Genderful, Dr. Lulu. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So we've modified our usual opening questions because you are one of our rare cisgender guests. We all looked at your sign up form. We're like, okay, we think Dr. Lulu passes the vibe check. So it's I think I can count on one hand how many cis people we've had on our over 100 episodes. So I'm really grateful to have you here today.
I appreciate it, for real. That's so cool.
Yeah. For those of our guests who are listening and are not present for the show, would you take a moment and describe your wonderful outfit that you're wearing for those who aren't going to get to see it otherwise?
Oh, it's a traditional Nigerian blouse, actually. I don't know if y'all can see. So we can't see that. Well, I don't know. It's got a lot of sequins in it. It's really multicolored. It's flowery, bright, yellow, green, red, all colors. And the top here are more beaded sequins, I think is the word at that point.
Yeah.
And they look like cowrie shells. I don't know if you all know what cowrie shells are, but they're colorful. One is yellow, one is light green, and one's cream colored. And so when you have something this heavy, then you avoid wearing anything on your neck because this kind of takes the place of that. But yeah, so it's multicolored black background with blue, red, yellow, green, all kinds of colors. I think I was trying to be colorful today since I was going to go fight at the Capitol on behalf of children who just need their medicines.
Yeah. Thank you for that description. It's a really lovely outfit you're wearing.
I love it. It's so colorful.
Potent. Yeah, it's so wonderful.
She was Nigerian. Yeah, it's Nigerian.
I love that. Did you say it's the live recording today is on a special day for you? Is that right?
Well, today at the Capitol here in Georgia, this is also my 6th week living in Atlanta, Georgia, but I didn't realize that they have a day called Diaspora Day. So
Mhm.
all the Africans, as many Africans as could come out, maybe 300 or more of them were at the Georgia Capitol, and they had like events, they had programs, they had some recognitions and some other things. But also piggybacked against that was the House Bill 1170 in Georgia. So that's the one that was supposed to be a good bill because it was to help to make sure that government offices, government buildings have Narcan, which was good. But then
Yeah.
they piggybacked and quickly put a complete ban of any kind of puberty blockers on only transgender children. And
Yeah.
we had to go do some writing, fortunately. I happened to be there. So like the one pediatrician in the space, let's go have a conversation about this, shall we? So that's what
Yeah.
happened. It was all in all a good day because I got to spend 10 minutes with the author of the bill, who is a Republican, but he talked with me like, a father would, maybe almost. So that was nice.
Yeah. Well, I'm so grateful for your energy and that you took the time to go do that for such a big part of your day, and that you had even one little shred of energy left for us after all of that good activism work today.
Thank you. No, thank you. Thank you. No, I think it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. I like the way y'all are very meticulous about your show. There's nothing wrong with that. No,
Yeah.
no problems at all.
So, can you tell us about your path to becoming an outspoken LGBTQ plus advocate? What sort of sparked this desire in you to do the work that you do?
Probably multiple things. I think they said, what did they say? Swiss cheese model or something, when all the things are just aligned. I, as a pediatrician, lost my first patient to self-harm in two, 2000, I think.
Mm.
And then I had a fellow doctor colleague that followed suit. And then in 2000, and the doctor was in 2000, and 2008 was a patient, and in 2015 was another patient. So I just kept seeing more and more children coming in with depression and anxiety. And as a matter of fact, one time, one of the nurses, when I was still active duty, she's like, "So is there some kind of smoke in your head that these patients know that because all the patients were just coming left, right, and center." And that just kept attracting them for some reason. And now they all came, maybe not all of them, but enough of them came, depressed and anxious. But when I dug a little bit deeper, many of them said there was stuff going on at home. The other one said there was stuff going on at school. But more of them said that there was stuff going on at home. I just thought that was interesting. I used to think my kids were like completely not affected by that because I'm a great parent, but I knew that that's not possible. I mean, no one is a 100% great parent.
Yeah, of course.
And so as we went on, and I left the Air Force and I joined this big, ginormous private practice, it continued. Because I used to think it was just military brats, kids, they call them military brats. I thought maybe it was just that was what was happening. Maybe these kids are their parents are in the military. But then I went into the private practice and kept happening. It's still all the kids were coming in. I was like, what's going on with this suicidal thing? This was 2015 and 2016. So it's not like locked down. I remember my ex-wife was the one actually put two and two together. She said, well, I mean, if all these kids are coming and complaining about something going on, shouldn't you be talking to the parents instead? I was like, I mean, I'm already talking to the parents. But what she really meant was, you're threatening to leave medicine anyway. Maybe you should be talking to parents when you leave. And I was like, well, what does that mean? She said, I don't know, maybe something like a coach. I was like, oh, yeah, I guess I could. So I didn't think about it again until I left the Air Force. And then I really started thinking more and more about it when I had a 7-year-old who attempted twice, 7-year-old. I was like, okay, I hear
7
you.
is so young.
I hear you. I hear you. I'll do something about it. Literally, I think that one kid was just like the screaming, like, can you hear me in my ear? I was like, okay. So I said, but I don't know how to proceed. And then I just had this thought to ask the state of Texas, if I can even do that. Can I open a practice where I only see at-risk youth? Is that a possibility? And the lady on the other side of the phone said, ma'am, if you want to open a practice where you only see people who were born on the 5th of May, you can. I was like, really? She said, yes, you have a license. And I just thought that was so powerful. And so I started putting things, into play to open a practice that would only cater to high-risk youth. And of course, it spread like wildfire. There's a doctor that wants to see just all of the suicidal patients. We don't have to do that. Send him all the patients. And then very quickly, the practice grew. And I was like, oh. And then the lockdown happened. And when the lockdown happened, I was like, yeah, so now I can't hug on the kids anymore. They can't come to see me in person anymore. What to do next? And then that was when my ex-wife said, you're still not talking to the parents. You're still talking to the kids. I was like, well, what do you want? He said, you need to talk to the parents. It's time for you to talk to the parents. And so then I kind of switched everything and got certified as a parent coach so I could talk to parents. And then that was in 2020. My kid was graduating from Stanford. And at the graduation, thank you. And at the graduation, the announcer kept saying they this and they that because she was getting the award of excellence from the College of Arts. And she had to do like a solo performance because she did music performance and gender studies. So I was like, wait, but son, who are all these people? I thought you were the only one getting the award. Like, who are these people this man is talking about? And then my middle child was like, Mom, I think the they, them is because X, which is what I use on podcasts, identifies as non-binary. I was like, man, what is that? Like, what do you mean? And then I asked my ex, and she was like, I don't know, that's your kid. I was like, I don't know, what's non-binary? So
the furious Googling intensifies.
Yes.
I was like, hey. And the story I tell is just true. I used to, ask God to please take away the gay. Please, I don't want my child to be gay. Please, I don't want people to say I did one because I was born in Nigeria, bred in Nigeria, buttered in Nigeria, and slightly burned in Nigeria. So I knew that people are going to come back and say, I did this to my kid. Somehow I did it. And don't you know, that's exactly what ended up happening. Everybody was like, oh, how does your kid end up, what did you do? So I was not the most affirming parent because when I told my dad that I liked girls and boys, he said it was just a phase and I believed him. And I used to try to negotiate with God and say, please, if you don't make my eldest gay, I'll do anything for you. And at that point, when I heard about the non-binary, I was like, okay, God, I'll take the gay because I don't know what I'll take the gay. I do not know what this non-binary is. And I truly didn't know what it was. That was my first time ever hearing the term non-binary. I just did not know what was happening. So in the end, when I found out what I needed to find out about non-binary, within a year or so on Christmas Day, she called and said, well, Mom, I'm actually transgender. I'm like, wait, I tell you what's happening? Like, what is this? So I did not know what I didn't know. Like all my days of thinking the child was just gay, and I took that and I was like, okay, maybe we can manage with that. We can maybe just don't act so gay when you go out. Just try not to be so gay when your grandparents are here. Don't paint your nails. I mean, I did all the things. I said, just try not to be who you are. And I did all that because really, truly in my mind, I was trying to protect the kid is what I thought. So like if you're not so, you're not so out with it in public, then maybe my parents will not think I did something. So I made it about me in a sense. And well, as we went on, and then the transgender came up, and then I was like, okay, so this is real. And she actually said, Mom, it's not about you. It's not about you. I mean, this is about me. This is about you supporting me. This is about you. And then somehow, as a single parent, I was like, yeah, but what about your dad? Like, I'm the parent that stayed, I'm the one that's doing all the things, dad is not even doing anything. And I think I want to tell that story because that is very, very common amongst most of the parents in my Facebook group. They're like, well, I'm the mom that stayed. I mean, I don't. Why do I have to deal with all of this? Why me? What about the dad? And well, what about the dad? And what are you gonna do? The studies have shown that you only need one affirming parent for kids to thrive. So, but again, looking back, all the things I did was because in my mind I was like, well, let's do it this way so that it's not so obvious. But now I realize, wait, the kid has always known who they were from day one. We just didn't know. We were the ones that actually were groomed, and we're the ones that were brainwashed to believe that there are only two genders, and all the things, especially as Catholics. It's just like, yeah, you're going to go to hell anyway. So do you want to take your kid to hell with you? And all those things. And they're real. Parents really do experience a lot of guilt and shame and fear and overwhelm because everyone is coming at you. My own case, my parents have not acknowledged the child because my dad is just too stuck in the fact that, well, I had my first grandson. There's this in Nigeria. There's this whole thing about having the first child being a boy is like it's like the shiznit. Like this is how we want to be.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
It's still very, very difficult. There's a lot of misogyny, a lot of patriarchy, and just a lot in Nigeria. I mean, much like Texas, right? It's just we're all Black. And one of my siblings is bi, a couple of uncles are gay. We're never gonna say that. No one's ever gonna, acknowledge that because it's best to not say anything about it. Maybe he's gonna go away. So I just decided I'm gonna affirm my child. I mean, I'm just gonna do it. My dad was not there for me, and I did okay, but barely. Right? It took me 26 years to finally come out because my dad said, it's a phase, and my auntie said, you're gonna go to hell. And children, they believe their parents because we think our parents know best. We think our parents know everything. So I did. I believe my dad. I thought my dad will never not know. My dad will never purposely tell me, it's a phase, just to tell me. But now I realize he also had his own journey. And I'm not necessarily making excuses for him, but he also had his own journey. He just didn't know what he didn't know. And I had to tell him about the pronouns in my language, for instance. We only have they, them pronoun. We don't have he, him, or she, her. I had to remind him of that to get him to see that ancient languages didn't need that differentiation. So everybody's they, them. It's only when you hear the context, you say, oh, okay, that's your brother. Oh, okay, good, because everybody's they, them. And so that's how I got my dad to understand just the concept of two spirits. I was like, we have those back home. And he was like, yeah, you're right. But I said, but what? Well, but Christianity, he went there. I said, but Christianity kind of told us that those things are actually not Christianity only, but the people, the white folks. And then we had to remind him that, Africans are the only ones who don't practice African religion anymore. Why is that? In China, they practice Chinese religion. In Bali, they practice their own religion. Why not Africa? And so some of those questions you ask them, because your parents are not gonna respond, but it's good for them to know that you now know that some of the stuff that they were feeding you was raw bullshit. But it is what it is. So
yeah, no, a lot of what you said is I find very relatable to. It's because my parents are immigrants from Africa, and different culture from Nigeria, but it's still like that whole idea of the firstborn being the son. It's like the golden child, and that's definitely something I experienced.
Yes.
Yeah, that's definitely something I experienced. And I mean, you certainly handled it a lot better than my parents did. Um,
I barely
but yeah,
did. I
there's
barely
that
did.
phase. Yeah, there is that phase of like that shame where like you have all these cultural traditions and this sort of thing isn't accepted. It's seen as shameful. So, what advice would you have to parents for them to move past these feelings of shame or guilt, so that they can, love and support and affirm their queer children?
Actually, my recommendation is to feel it. I want you to feel the feel. I want you to process the emotions because running away from the emotions is what it's the definition of suffering for me, according to Dr. Lulu, is knowing the right thing to do and not doing it. That's suffering because you just remain in this state of no growth.
Mhm.
So I say, feel the emotions, analyze the emotions. Um, when I coach parents, I tell them to go back to begin with what are your thoughts? What were your thoughts about having children? What did you think parenting was going to be like? What gender child did you want? A lot of people say, oh, I wanted two boys and a girl. Okay. So I want you to realize that the two boys and a girl was your thoughts, not your child, right?
Mm.
And then what are your thoughts about the queer community? What did you think when you heard, that when you hear the word queer, even before you had kids? What did you know? And where did that knowledge come from? They need to do those things. It's not enough to just, you cannot not feel those feelings, but get to the root and ask yourself the tough questions. Why do you feel shame? And my kid was the one that actually, she said, well, mom, it was my second TED talk. I showed it to her a week to the talk. So just take a look at this talk and just let me know if you feel like I'm representing all the queer kids. And the only line she had a problem with was the one that said to the parents, said something like, it was going to say, I understand your need to mourn the loss of the child you thought you had. She
Mhm.
had a problem with that. She was like, what are they mourning? The child is alive and well. So
Yeah.
I don't like that. And we had to change it to something like, I understand your confusion. Oh, I don't know. I can't remember what I said because in the end, because we changed that one line a week to the top, forgot the whole line. So I didn't even say it in the end. But that got me thinking. She's like, they should be celebrating the children. You should be celebrating your child. And yesterday's guest on our podcast actually said something amazing. She said when the second child told her that they were non-binary, she said, congratulations. And I'd never heard that before. She was like, he said, congratulations on the self-awareness that it takes to come to this knowing. And then being able to tell me, of course, thank you too, but congrats, and just wanting to live authentically. So I think maybe parents should look at it that way as a joyful thing, as a celebration. Because it's a rebirth. And then she actually said, she made a case for when somebody has a baby, what do you say to them? We say, congratulations.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. So I told her, I said, I'm stealing that, but I'm going to give you, credit. Her name is Wendy Marsh. She's an educator in the autism space. And the talk was the intersection between queerness and gender diversity and neurodiversity. That was what we talked about yesterday. And I was like, oh my God, that's so good. It's a celebration. So tell the child. And then the next one, she was like, you're gonna need clothes. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Now, in the rest of our defense, that was her second child. That was a second gender diverse child. So she had some practice with the first one. With
Mm.
the first one, she wasn't like, oh yeah, sure, congratulations, let's go get new clothes. I think the case I want to make is for parents to just become aware, even before you have children, that when your children are born, it's a genital identity that you're celebrating, not a gender identity.
Mm.
Because everything you're saying, it's a boy, it's a girl, is based solely on the external, actually, genetics, because you don't know what's going on the inside. And therefore, I want you to own the fact that you are assuming and assigning. And so now I say, I'm raising this child as a boy. raising this child as a girl, so that you are aware that you are the one raising, that the child may one day say, you know what, I'm actually not. And then the pain is less, if there's any pain at all. But it's just basically just unlearning all of the stuff that we've been taught and we've been indoctrinated into believing, so that we can learn. Because if you want to build a house, you have to first excavate the land. So that's what we're doing. To build that home, you have to unlearn so that you can learn. And so my third TED Talk makes a case for parenting as students and allowing the children to lead you. Even something as simple as a child who has a peanut allergy, there's only one way to find out. You got to feed them peanuts.
Yeah.
And so you're learning from the child. So let's all stop this mindset of, as a parent, I know my child. You truly don't. I found out when my child was 22 years old that she's transgender. 22 years is a long time. So we missed out on a lot, on a lot. And so I tell parents, I've made all the mistakes, so you don't have to. You know, they say smart people learn from their mistakes, but smarter people learn from other people's mistakes. So you don't have to. I don't even know if I answered your question, but
No, that was great.
Okay. You're on a roll. It's great.
Yeah, no,
I
I had a couple follow-ups to that actually, because when you mentioned earlier the parents kind of mourning the child that they used to have, I mean, that's something that comes up a lot, like not just the parents, but like basically as trans folks, like everyone that in our social circle is quote unquote mourning that the person that we were. But if you think about it, that person was a fiction, like that. You're
they
making it
never
about
were.
yourself.
It's a mirage. It's a mirage, is what I say. It's a mirage. The closer you get, the more it's not there, because it never was there. It was just a reflection of light and
that was just
the
performance that person put on, right? That wasn't the real person. So and again, it's like when you say something like that, well, I'm mourning the person that you used to be, it's like, well, you're making it about yourself at that point. It's not about, you know, the trans person in your life. It's you're making it about your conception of them.
And you know, it's funny you said that, because a lot of parents, even today, they're like, well, maybe now it's been about 3 years, but maybe like last year or the year before that, wait, the child just told you, just found out. I'm like, yes. They're like, are you already like agitating? And I'm coaching. I was like, well, how long do you want me to take? I already found out. 22 years is already long enough. And so I want whoever will be parents, or I don't know if parents listen to your show or not, the day you know, that's the day you want to make the decision. And let me tell you something, you know how to make tough decisions. We all do.
Yep.
We all have made tough decisions, because they usually stuck in, yeah, but I don't know how to. And then I say, well, how to what? And then they say, I don't know how to accept a child. And I say, well, actually, the person that needs accepting self. You need to accept yourself and your identity as the parent of a gender diverse child. And then affirm your child so that you can support your child and yourself. But first, self-acceptance, because that was what I know now, that it was that identity. I didn't want to be the mother of a trans kid. I didn't want people to say I'm a mother of a trans kid. I didn't want people to look at me differently. It was all me. So the person that needs to be accepted is yourself. And same thing, obviously I'm not gender diverse, but I want to just kind of cross and say, same thing for gender diverse people, just accept yourself as you are. And then, you know what, nobody else matters. And so I tell the parents the same thing. I said, you've made tough decisions before. You made a decision to marry your spouse, you made a decision to go to college, you made a decision you made to move. We made tough decisions. We made a decision to have a baby, with or without epidural. Those are tough decisions. Each one you made, and then you didn't die, right? You just make it and just keep going. So I tell them to accept yourself already. It doesn't mean that you're gonna it's not like turning off the light and switching on the light, but it does help to make the decision already. Like, okay, I'm gonna build a house. Boom. Okay, now what do I need to build a house? Versus, oh, do I want to build a house? Do I not want to build a house? What kind of, is it going to be a house? Is it an apartment? Maybe a condo? That's not helping anybody. That's what I mean by the definition of suffering. You know you want to do it already. Now, that said, I don't speak to all parents because the parents who do not want to affirm their kids, they're not my clients. When people ask me, well, what do you say to a parent who doesn't want to? I don't say anything to them. I work with the parents who want to, and then we can figure out how. So I try not to make a difference with that. It's not every parent that wants to affirm. And I'm not saying that it's good. I'm just saying they're not my clients because at one point you have to decide where you want to put your bandwidth. And I just don't have the bandwidth for a parent who's categorically saying, I don't want to do this. I feel for their kid. I'm happy to work with their kid, but it doesn't make sense. Like, there are just too many Nigerians parents who are just like religious. I don't, that's triggering for me almost. Like, what do you want? If you don't want to do it, then okay, don't do it. It's fine for you. But be ready when, whatever is going to happen as a consequence of that happens. Maybe your child is going to leave and never come back. Maybe, all the other things, right?
Yeah.
So,
oh boy, like coming from a very religious backgrounds, I can. Well, a lot of the things you're saying sound very familiar to me.
it's not a good thing. They actually, the Nigerians whisper around me all the time. Today they were whispering around me. And I knew what they were whispering. Oh, that's the lady who talks about, because they were all like, and it's like, my. So they whisper around me, like, it's this abomination. Some of them feel sorry for me, like, oh, your child is trans. Well, I'm like, your child might be trans too. Your child might be hiding in plain sight. And I say that a lot about the Black Transgender Child. They are very often hiding in plain sight. I say, don't feel sorry for me. Your child might be trans too. We just don't know yet. And just because the child hasn't told you doesn't mean that they're not.
Yeah. And I mean, if they have an attitude like that, that's probably like if their child was trans, they might not even tell them. So
that happened with me. My kid told me that. She said, Mom, you were so transphobic when I was young. There's no way I could have told you. I want to talk about this. One time I was very proud of myself. I was like, oh my goodness, I nailed this talk that I gave in San Francisco a couple of years ago. No, last year, I think. Last year, I was so proud of myself. I said, oh, I was talking, during the talk, this pediatrician stood up and said, I have a lot of white trans patients and I have a lot of Hispanic trans patients, but I don't have many Black trans patients. And that was when I said, actually, you do. They're hiding in plain sight. And I was really proud of myself, right? And I went back and I told my kid, so I said, what you need to do is you need to do this in the office and do that in the office and do that in the office and do that. And so that the child, and my kid was like, Mom, I want you to absolve all of the doctors of any kind of. So I'm like, wait, what? I was like, yes, because you were my pediatrician and I would have never, ever told you. Let me tell you, I felt this big, but also I felt this big because that's the child that I raised to tell me that, to call me to order. And so what she was trying to say was that not that physicians should not be affirming, but that ultimately it all comes down to the home. What's happening at home? What are the parents doing? How are the parents doing it? That's what she was trying to tell me. It doesn't mean that physician, because I don't want someone to say, well, I'm a doctor, so I'm not going to. No, I didn't say that. I'm saying everything begins at home first. And you were given the child, not your cousin, not your neighbor, not your sister. You were given the child. You were given the child because you can handle the child. And I think that's what I like, that I realized the universe, God, and source was trying to say to me, this child I'm giving to you is because you can do the work. Now, you might struggle a little bit, and that's okay. Everybody struggles a little bit. But once you get it, you get it. So that's kind of what I'm most proud of, being able to empower parents and their physicians as well, to see that you might be the only affirming adult in that child's life. So physicians also need to do their work. And I happen to be a doctor, so I'm able to talk to them doctor to doctor because of, the health inequities that's just plaguing the community. We wouldn't have all those if enough physicians were affirming as they should be. So
Yeah.
So I am loving so much of what you're saying, Dr. Lulu. I'm wanting to be mindful of time, so I'm going to smush a couple of our questions into one mega question.
it's okay. And I also have ADD, so if I don't remember them, just ask me. Just ask me again. It's fine.
Me too.
I've already started doing the thing, so let's just roll with it. I'm good.
Yeah. So you have a couple of things on the horizon. You have your family-focused gender and sexuality affirming medical practice that you're opening. You also have books that you've published and some TED Talks that you've done. And I wonder if you want to talk about those things in any order that you delight in.
I think I mentioned the TED Talks in the talk. The first one is titled "Childhood Trauma and What You Can Do to Help." Actually, it was originally something about suicide prevention, but they didn't want us to use that, so we changed it to childhood trauma and what you can do to help. Because truly, especially with intersectionality and Black people and other people of color, but especially Black people, there's so much trauma going on. So much. There's which trauma do you want to talk about, And the suicide rate in African Americans, there's this study that was done in 2016 and again in 2018, and both studies had identical results. African American kids aged 5 through 12 are twice as likely as their white counterparts to die by suicide. But people are like, wait, what? I'm like, yes, 5 through 12. Yeah. So that is when the child is at home and has no respite. By 12 or 13, high school, middle school is kind of kicking in. They're making friends. They're finding new horizons. I believe in my heart that that's the reason that number is like that. 5 through 12 is when they're still at home and just kind of locked in and just almost like they just have nowhere out. So that's the first TED Talk. It was just talking about what to do. And I think I said I had like an acronym talk, tell someone, tune in to your child's emotions, ask open-ended questions, listen, and then keep all communication lines wide open. That's what talk, because I believe that talk saves lives. And the second one is called Rethinking the Closet, making a case for inviting in versus coming out. And we just talked about the burden of having to come out every time and how, nobody has to do that. Recently I had a person that I stuck into on a dating app and I said something about my wife once, and then I said something about my wife again. It was like, wait, hold up. What is this about wife? I said, what is it about wife? What? You said something about your wife, right? So yes, it's okay. So, and he was like, I said, yes. I mean, what? Needless to say, that kind of went south after that. But still, people should not have to explain, you said your wife left you. I said my wife and I went our separate ways. And,
yeah,
right?
like what's the problem here?
I mean, yeah, but the next thing I heard on the phone was like, okay, I have to take this call. I said, Jesus, take your call. That's whatever. But that's just part of the burdens. Like, do you want to live authentically or do you not want to? I mean, and if you want to, there's people like, oh, well, every time we say something, people get all. I said, well, you're Black, sir. How would you feel if every time you have to explain your Blackness? How do you even explain your Blackness? You didn't make yourself Black. So what are you explaining? So the burden is not on me to explain my queerness. The burden is on you to just keep moving. Just don't make it a case because how do you explain your Blackness? And then the third one is the one I talked about. It's titled Let the Children Lead, Parenting as Students, where I just talked about gender affirmation and gender assignment and what that means and how we are the ones that actually assign it. Because I've never heard of a baby who was born and said, I'm a boy. But what I've heard is babies are born, we say it's a boy, and then the baby cries. And so my little joke is, we don't know why the baby's crying. Medically, I know it's because of some physiologic process. But just for the heck of it, maybe the baby's crying that I'm not a boy. We don't know. And then when the baby can now tell you that I'm not a boy, you're like, no, you are. It's like, I want parents to just see that this is actually like life and death for some people. And my youngest child was the one that once told me, Mom, I went from a big brother to a big sister, right? I was like, yes. Well, you never talk about that. But I was talking about parents like, you never really talk about that. And then I realized there's also a sibling's journey. When any child is transitioning, the whole family is transitioning. So why am I not talking to the whole family? Why am I not making it a family affair? So that's how the whole family focused. And I think I got my first client today. I'm so excited. Coaching, as opposed to your child is the one that is queer or you are the parent. Let's talk about how everyone together, what is this like for all of us? And who do we have to, disassociate with, and who do we need to continue with? What church do we need to find to support us? What church do we need to leave that's not supporting us? Things like that as a unit. Because parents are important to kids, and kids want their parents. They do everything until they absolutely cannot. For the child to walk away from their parent, the parent must have really, really, really done something that child just was like, at this point, but that's not natural. Kids want their parents. So I want the parents to realize that they're not only the most important, they're also the most influential in the kids' lives. So they need to do their parts and not listen to others. And if your friend tells you to not affirm your child, get rid of your friend. That friend is not a good friend. Because they know the suicide rates. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I wanted to just do almost like a family practice, but coaching. And I have
Yeah.
a
Can you
book
tell us
called
more about your family practice that you're planning? Because that's our
Yes,
next
I'm
question is
excited about it.
what is that? Tell us more.
I'm
We're
most
excited to
excited
hear about
about it. My focus is gender and sexuality affirmation, but really gender affirmation. I want to focus on the psychosocial aspect of affirming a gender diverse child, what that is like at the age of 2, what that is like at the age of 4. Because truly, I know this scientifically speaking that gender awareness is at the age of 2, actually 1. For a
Mhm.
child who is able to speak fast and early, like my eldest child, they can tell you their gender. Cisgender boys can tell you that they're boys at 2. Cisgender girls can tell you that they're girls at 18 months. And so what happens to the transgender child? And if they tell you that they're not, what are you doing? What are you thinking? And so I want us to start there, because I find that if we start that early, we won't have to have this, oh my God, 12 years, 13 years old, suddenly the child is now thinking. No, they've been thinking it. They've known it this whole time.
Yeah.
So I really want to tell people that gender affirmation is much more than hormones and surgery. And the only way I can get you to understand that is to start at the age of 2 and 3, when truly it's about maybe the dress that they want to wear, or the haircut, or the name, or the pronouns, or just whatever. Maybe they just want to wear just no colors, no pink and blue, and all of that stuff, all the genderness of it. And just having the parents just kind of say, leaning in with curiosity, oh, interesting. Well, what do you want to wear today then? Right? And let the kid pick it. Okay, what name do you want us to call you today? Just empowering the child, okay, today I feel like Nick. Okay, well, today you're Nick, as opposed to, no, you're Sheila and that's it, because a lot of times the children also don't understand. But enough parents tell me, but I don't understand it. I don't understand. I said, well, the kid doesn't understand it too, but I want you to just know. So I'm all about the knowing versus the understanding, because sometimes the kids are also getting all kinds of information from everywhere. So they don't fully get it yet. But as the most important person in their lives at that, most influential, if you just say, okay, cool, let us know what color your day is today, or what name, just something that the child gets. Affirming the child is easy. And then you can now tell the rest of the world if you want to, right? This is what we do with our child. This is how, and I learned that from one of my co-hosts of my podcast. You know, they're non-binary and they're raising their child outside gender norms. It's like, whatever you want to feel like today, let's feel like it with you. And I want the parents to understand. And so it's not quite as easy as, here, take some pills. But at the end of the day, by the time we get to puberty, you know your child so much and your child is so empowered already. And hopefully this mess with hormones and stuff, they will find something else to do with their time at the legislative level.
Yeah.
And kids can get the hormones if that's what they need, or you know early enough to move to a state that is affirming. You know, all the other things, by the time you get there, is not this big. See, the thing about adolescence is it's already drama, but this is one less drama if you can start at the age of 3 to just start calling them the name that suits them and being okay with the fact that they might change the name, you know, and that's okay. And I think just make it fun. Like, okay, so today you're such and such, and just let the child be. I wish that I had done that with my child. I wish I could go back. I get very emotional. I just wish.
Yeah, no, I understand that feeling of regret. There's a lot of things I wish I could go back and do differently, but yeah, I think it's really powerful to just let children experiment. Just don't tell them who they are. Let them figure it out. Yeah.
But they already do. Children by nature are experimenters. Why is it okay for you to see 2 kids playing in the sandbox? One is a boy and one is a girl assigned. And it's like, oh, is that his little girlfriend? Oh, well, we don't know yet. But if it's 2 kids playing in the sandbox and both of them are boys, you can't say, oh, is that Tommy's little boyfriend? What do you mean? You know?
Yeah.
Why that? So it's all about the unlearning. I think it's just, and just giving yourself permission to be okay with it if your friends leave. Because I lost, I think, all my friends but one. And I think the one I still have is because she's the godmother. And she was, because she's passed on. But it's just terrible. I mean, just all my friends, every last one of them.
Yeah,
it's real. It's real.
It's tough. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now you're also publishing some books. You have 3 books coming out this year. What are they about? And why are you writing them knowing that they'll all probably be banned?
Banned somewhere. Well, the fun thing, I was very disappointed over the weekend when someone said, yeah, but if the books are for parents, they're not going to get banned. I'm like, what?
Oh, my sweet summer child.
So the one I'm really working on every single day now is called About Your Black Transgender Child. Answers to most of your burning questions. Most, because, you know, I don't know all the answers. The second one is being co-published between me and the American Academy of Pediatrics, and that's titled Invited In, how to become the parent your LGBT child needs. And then the third one is Allies in White Coats, LGBT plus Basics for Physicians, just really helping doctors, you know, so all of the intersectional factors. I'm Black and I'm a physician and I'm queer, just helping these people. And they're not very big books. They're not heavy either. It's just, you know, like they're about for Black transgenders, and maybe I have about your thoughts and about gender diversity and about gender expression and about sexuality. Every chapter is about something. They're not long chapters, they're short, about responding to your child when they come out, about, you know, responding to homophobes, you know, like that, about, you know, about puberty blockers, you know, about transitioning, the fact that transitioning for 10 people is 10 different things, right? 10 different ways. And just being okay with, yeah, but how come you're a trans man and now you're gay? I'm like, yeah, because one is sexuality. I'm like, things like that. A lot of people, I did not know that. I had no idea. Even in medical school, we were told it was a mental, because I went to medical school in the 80s. At that time, everybody was mental illness. It was like, oh, they're mentally ill.
Yeah.
So of course I shut my mouth up because I was like, I'm not going to tell anybody that I'm attracted to girls because they're going to say I'm mentally ill. So it's a lot of, it's hard. It's hard living in a very homophobic world, even as a cisgender woman.
So the last thing that you're up to that I wanted to make sure we at least have a moment for before we wrap up today is you have a Parents Supporting Parents Summit coming up in June. Do you want to tell us about that right quick before we move to
I'm
close?
so excited. I don't know how y'all found out all these things.
We have our ways.
I just moved to Atlanta like 7 weeks ago, and last year, do y'all know about the Creating Change conference?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
I've not heard of that.
It's only like the biggest LGBT fiscal conference. It's put up by the LGBTQ plus task force.
Oh.
They did their 50th year this year. So they've been doing this for a long time. It's called Creating Change. Y'all should go. Just pitch and just do like a panel about your podcast. But anyway, so I went to Creating Change for the first time last year, and I had a workshop titled Intersectionality of the Black Trans Child. And then after that, I realized like I felt a little redundant as a parent. There was nothing for parents, nothing. Now I'm not saying that they've never had anything for parents. I just know that last year there was nothing for parents. So this year I was like, I'm just going to pitch a parents caucus because why not, right? So that was about 90 minutes of just pure parents in the room supporting each other. Let me tell you, at the end of the 90 minutes, for another hour and a half, no one left the room. There were 33 people in attendance, and they were all parents.
Wow.
One of the parents specifically felt she was all that, in the sense that she was, when we were doing like the Q&A, she was talking about her child's name choice. It's like, oh, well, it was this name, and then it was another name. And we're like, no, you don't get to, listen, I'm half Chinese, and then your other parent is half Dutch or whatever, and you need to have a name. And we just kind of watched her. And then one of the parents on the panel said, let me tell you a story about that. My kid picked a name, I can't remember the name, some video game character. And he said he should act about the choice of names. That you couldn't even pick a real name, you picked the name of a fictional character, And so the kid did what most kids would do, clamped down and didn't say anything else about their name and the choice of names or try to explain it and just stop. And then one day, I don't know, maybe they were like somewhere, and there was a news reporter that was asking the child, tell me, oh, that name is cool. Tell me about it. And then the kid was like, so their mother passed away from breast cancer, like maybe, I don't know, whatever number of years before that. And their mother loved that character.
Aww.
And that's why the child picked the name.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I know. And so he said the same thing I said the other day. He said he felt this big. First of all, his child didn't tell him that story because he lost the privilege to get the story because of his reaction. You know what I mean? So and it's important that parents hear these things, because who knows what goes into the names? Who knows what goes into the choices? I got lucky that my eldest child picked the name that began with the letter P. And believe it or not, was 2 letters off from the name that I had picked. I don't know how we were in alignment with that. But I just want parents to just let go of all this. Like at the end of it, it doesn't matter. Like just celebrate the name. If you want to change your name again, okay, cool. Well, what's the name this week? Just have fun with it. So that mom, it just was like, oh, well, like, yes. I mean, the name the child is picking they're picking it because finally they want to own something, right? And you are coming into that and you're like, no, you gotta pick something Chinese, and then you must pick something Japanese, and it's like it's so much pressure. So she didn't see that, and so that's why I like parents, because there's some things that if the children were in that space, parents would not be able to feel free enough to talk about, and vice versa. And we all have blinders, and she really felt so good. She was telling us, we're like side eye, we're like, so what? So what name? So when is your child going to have any kind of independence?
Mhm.
They can't have their name. Like that's like the very least thing. Rather than attacking, why don't you get curious and say, tell me about the name you picked and how you arrived at it, so that
Mhm.
the child will feel invited in, which is why I love going with invited in versus, coming out and all that. It's like it's your space. You get to invite who you want to invite into the space, and you get to rescind their invitations if you don't want to. So yeah.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I love that so much.
I am really grateful that you had time to join us today, Dr. Lulu. I wanted to share that one of the most powerful choices my mom made when I came out to her is she processed her grief with other people that weren't me. And that's exactly
Okay.
the work that you're doing. And so, like, she actually shows up and we do a stream together once a month, like you and I are doing right now. We do this once a month, and she does tarot readings with me on stream. So we like do our spiritual practice together with my little community online, and it's really a special and potent time. The show is called Tarot for Trans. So if anyone wants to drop in, it's the third Thursday of the month, usually. This month we may skip because she's not feeling well, but in general, that's when it happens.
Wow.
And so I just
That is
wanted to add that
beautiful.
is like when parents do the thing you're saying, when they process their feelings with people who aren't the kid, and it's support in to the kid, and it's processing the other direction to other people who are going to be supportive of the person trying to be supportive of the kid, not telling them don't support your kid. um that is really a powerful choice, and it has made a really beautiful and strong relationship between me and my mother. um
I'm
the
very
other
proud of you
thing,
and your mom. I did not do that. My kid
yeah,
was actually the one that said, Mom, actually you have to get therapy. You have to process because it was just everywhere. It was like, oh my God. But then looking back, all of the shame that I felt was self-imposed.
yeah,
Mm.
It was all self-imposed. And as a coach now, I know it's all because of my thoughts about it. And the thought that I had was, oh my God, people are going to say I am a mother of a trans child. So it was my identity that I
hmm,
was fighting with, struggling with. And so you gotta make peace with the fact that, just knowing all the things that we've talked about, and just letting go of people's gender and people's genitals, and confusing that with their gender identity, because it's not the same.
Mhm.
And it's all, now that I know better, I want to teach people so that
yeah,
maybe they will know. But it's not as hard also as we think it is. I think that's what I want to sell. I want to sell the fact that it's once you make the decision, just pull the bandage. It's not as hard as we think, that we just have this tightness in our chest, because right away we're thinking about us. Truly, the tightness in the chest will not exist if you're thinking about your child
yeah,
as, okay, this is something that I must do, and how do I do it? And it's open. You just can just relax. Okay, how do I do it? Not that you're asking your child, but you're just saying to yourself, okay, I'm here now. I want to help. How do I help? Who do I need to talk to so I can, like you said, process this outside? Whether it's a therapist, whether it's a friend, whether it's a coach, whatever.
yeah,
Or you can listen to our podcast. We have a lot
yeah,
of moms on there talking about that. Moms for trans kids, yeah. Yeah, thank you all
yeah,
so much. This was really good.
yeah. the
You
the
say you
the
had
one
some
final
questions? Yeah.
the I just had one final thought that I wanted to make sure that I share, not only with you, Dr. Lulu, but any other parents who come across this podcast episode. If parents are having a moment, if your kid or someone in your life comes out to you and you have all those fears that Dr. Lulu was listing earlier, oh no, how are people going to treat this kid? Is their life going to be really hard? If your response is, kid, be less trans or queer or gay, like actually flip it. Instead of trying to change your child, how can you change the environment your child is in to make it better? And that's exactly how this episode started. It was with Dr. Lulu saying, I was on the Hill for 6 hours doing the activism thing, talking to legislature. Like, what we kids need is our parents to go to the legislature and say, make this world a better place for my kid. Don't tell your kid to not be gay or trans. Tell the legislature to be more friendly to gay and trans people. That's actually what that energy needs to go towards, is creating the systemic change that it makes the world a safer place for all of us to be authentically who we are. That's what this world needs. And we're all doing that work in our own ways. So I just want to thank you again, Dr. Lulu, for your activism, and also to the whole GenderMeowster team for all of our ongoing efforts to elevate the voices of trans people and our allies. This has been a really wonderful interview.
Well, thank you all so much. I definitely appreciate it. I know it's especially with the Black community. Oh my God. It's,
you could probably do a whole other podcast on that.
I'm telling you. But ironically, though, the more I do the work, the more I meet people who are Black parents who are affirming. I think, you just kind of start attracting what's within. So I'm getting more and more parents now who are like, oh, wow, I thought I was by myself. I thought I was all alone. And we're like, no, now we have each other, and it just, anyway. Did y'all have any questions from your listeners? I know you said you have some sometimes, so I can, otherwise, no problem.
We've been weaving the thoughts and comments in as we've been going to try and keep it short and sweet today. Yeah.
No problem.
So folks, Dr. Lulu is a Black queer immigrant, #Mama Beast, of a trans young adult. She's also an award-winning LGBTQ advocate and 3-time TEDx speaker, focusing on family affirmation and supporting queer plus kiddos. Check out her work on her website at dr-lulu.com/consulting. You can find Dr. Lulu on Instagram, Dr. Lulu Talk Radio, LinkedIn, Dr. Lulu, and Facebook. And so now we have this week's Clutter Query, which you, our audience, can answer on our social media platforms, and we'll have Dr. Lulu read it for us.
What are some good ways we as individuals can deal with anti-queer legislation being proposed / passed into law? I love that. That's what I moved to that's what I moved to Georgia to do, I swear. Love that.
So folks, for our coming soon, just a reminder that next week is our break week that we take every month. So there's no Genderful next week, but the week after that, on April 1st, we will be chatting with Orion Ovater, they and he pronouns, about the art of zine making. In terms of community updates, I just want to remind you all to please do save the date for our mutual aid event that's coming up. The date did change, so if you've heard past episodes, here's the new updated date. Our mutual aid event for Ezra Mutual Aid will be April 18th through 21st, and we're going to have our streamer applications coming out very soon, maybe sometime this week even. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Do save the date and save up some money to donate. We're raising some money for top surgery and some other expenses for a trans Texan of color. Genderful would like to thank all of our supporters who are on Patreon: Miranda Catita, Holly Blash, Winter Vespers, Loch Ness Gamer, Justin Baker Rojas, Yaisio, Ray of Swords, Mirami the Hessian, and Trans Capybara. We'll see you all next time. Genderful would like to thank our guest for being on this podcast. If you'd like to catch us live, join us on Mondays on twitch.tv/GenderMeowster. Show notes will appear in the edited versions of the show on Fridays on both YouTube and podcasting platforms.
If you have a question you'd like the host to answer, or are gender diverse and would like to request an interview, please send an email to genderfulpodcast@gmail.com or sign up via the website at genderfulpodcast.com.
As a gender diverse community, the Clouder wants to assure our listeners that we're prepared to moderate our spaces. We will get positive and negative feedback on these shows and topics, and we have a moderation team on our channels, socials, and Discord server ready to deal with this.
Please join our Discord server at discord.gg/Meowster to meet the community and get a regular digest of solidarity resources. You can also support us with subscriptions on Patreon, following and reviewing us on your favorite podcasting platform, or engaging with our posts and content on social media at GenderfulPod and at GenderMeowster.
You can take a few minutes to rate the show. We will post any 5-star reviews on our socials, so get creative. Mention a special interest of your own, a project you're working on, or even say hi to your comfort person in your review. What power!
This show is made possible by volunteers, tips, and subscriptions. Shout out to the folks helping us coordinate guests, edit the podcast, moderate the live chat, and post on our socials.
Here's our artist credit. Genderful is hosted by Miranda and GenderMeowster. Genderful's pre-show is wrangled by JuiceTex. Genderful's live stream is produced by Mirami. Genderful is edited and mixed by Transgriffin and FreeRangeMegs. Genderful's promos and thumbnail graphic are designed by Transgriffin. Genderful's social media is managed by Kainsey. Genderful's theme song is called Hope by FreeRangeMegs, also known as Soma. The current GenderMeowster logo was designed by Siptopia. Genderful is the intellectual property of GenderMeowster. All rights reserved.
Trans rights are human rights. That's right.